Happy Saturday once again, everyone, and this is a big day. We have a major WWE Championship shakeup going on right now with the world title. Drew McIntyre last night in Berlin, not Burlington Coat Factory, but Berlin, Germany, defeats Cody Rhodes in the 3 Stages of Hell match last night on SmackDown to win the WWE, I guess, undisputed title, whatever the hell it's called, the Cody belt. Drew has it now, and he's taking it at least into the Royal Rumble, possibly into WrestleMania, and possibly even throughout the rest of the year. We have to see what this means, what the reason was for it. Going into last night's SmackDown, a lot of people were wondering, like, are they really going to do this to Drew again? Are they going to screw him over again? I even had the idea, assuming that he probably wasn't going to win the title because WWE hasn't, that's what they've been doing with every championship title shot that he's gotten. I was, kind of wondering if maybe since it was the 3 Stages of Hell that Drew would win the first fall and then lose the final 2. That way, Cody can be like, bro, if you're the one that picked the stipulation, if you just would have picked a normal match, you'd be champion right now. And then, that sends Drew off the deep end, once and for all for the final time, and he just completely crashes out and goes absolutely nuts. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do, but a lot of us were holding out hope that Drew would actually win the championship. I think most fans were actually hoping that he would, even though he was the heel going into this match with Ultimate Babyface Cody. But in the end, he did win it last night, and that's what we are going to talk about and open up with this afternoon as we talk about a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about SmackDown. We're going to talk about AEW Dynamite. We're going to touch on this past Monday's Raw. Got a little bit of wrestling news to get into as well, and lots of speculation surrounding the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania now that Drew McIntyre is champion. Will he be a transitional champion? Because WWE last night also announced that they're going to hold a little mini tournament to determine who's getting the title shot at the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be 4 singles matches. The winners of those matches advance to Saturday night's main event to face in a 4-way. The winner of that gets the title shot at the Royal Rumble. One of the 8 participants in this little mini tournament is Sami Zayn. And I think that Drew versus Sami would be a really good match for the Royal Rumble for a couple of different reasons. And I'll let you guys know about that once we start getting rolling here, talking about all this stuff and the big WWE title change last night on SmackDown. So we are here a little bit early, about an hour, half an hour earlier than we normally are. I got a busy day. I got to head off to work a little earlier tonight than normal. So we need to get up here and bust out this podcast and get this done because there's lots to get into. So I'm going to say hello to everybody in the chat real quick. Then I'll let you guys know what's going on for tomorrow, and then we will jump into the wrestling news. Good to see everybody here. If you don't mind, smash that thumbs up button for me. Super chats are open. So are memberships, and make sure you are a subscriber because that's how you have to comment in the chat. If you want to comment in there, you got to be a subscriber. So anyway, good to see everybody this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. My boy Zane G is here. We got Melissa. We got Gilbert, handsome Steve Jacobson. We got Chaz Medeiros, Ryan Adams, Garrett, Isaac, Bionic, Will, Zach Palgett. Good to see Surge in here. David Brown, Denny Downbad, Mohammed, Intimidator is here. We've got Stone Cold 10X, Blammy 38, Sonic Plays. Rodrigo is here. Ben Espinoza, Jose Lopez, Nick Steele, WOC 1371. Still getting the handles on here for the chats instead of your actual names like it used to be. Hopefully, YouTube will get back to that at some point. Thanks, everyone who is here this afternoon. I appreciate it. Like I said, lots to get into, and it's pretty exciting news. It's kind of fun to talk about this stuff because I'm glad that WWE hit us with a surprise title change last night. It might not have been a huge surprise to many. Maybe some were expecting this, but everything we've seen WWE do with Drew over the past couple of years was not really pointing us in the direction of a title change last night. So the fact that we got that, I think, is really exciting, and it really kind of opens up the door for a lot of speculation about what we might see in the future. So we're going to be getting into that here in just a moment. But before we do, I want to let you guys know what to expect tomorrow. As you guys know, January is WWE Vault Watch-Along month here on the channel. We are hand-picking, cherry-picking matches from WWE and WCW Vault channel, and even WWE's main YouTube channel. As long as a wrestling match is available on YouTube, it's eligible for us to watch on a Sunday. So we had a great lineup last week, had a lot of fun last Sunday with this series of matches that I chose. I chose all of them, but going forward, I wanted you guys to pick the majority of the matches. So we've got super chats, options on those watch-alongs to recommend matches, and I'm letting the channel members pick on the community tab on YouTube as well. So we have a few channel member suggestions, a few super chat suggestions, and 2 recommendations of my own to form our 8 matches that we are going to watch tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific here, WWE Vault Watch Along Week 2. Get a load of this lineup. So here's what we're going to be watching tomorrow. 2 of the matches that were selected were Brock Lesnar and John Cena matches. We're going to watch Brock versus John Cena from Extreme Rules 2012 when Brock first came back. That's going to be the big one. That's probably going to be the main event tomorrow night. We're also going to watch 3 years later at the Royal Rumble, the 3-way Seth Rollins, John Cena, and Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. So those are the 2 big Brock and Cena matches we're going to watch tomorrow. Also, we're going to watch the tag team main event from Beach Blast, Sid and Vader teaming up to take on Sting and the British Bulldog. We're also going to watch the Macho Man Randy Savage and Bret the Hitman Hart team up, WWE Champion and Intercontinental Champion teaming up in the summer of 1992 to take on Ric Flair and the boy toy Shawn Michaels. We're also going to watch Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome from ECW Heatwave 1998. That match is absolutely nuts. I also selected a Jake the Snake Roberts versus Dustin Rhodes match from WCW Saturday Night in 1992, and another one recommended by the channel members. I'll shout out everybody's names tomorrow, but it was from a WWF Coliseum video back in 1994. I actually own this video. It's WrestleFest 1994. The Hart Brothers, Bret Hart and Owen Hart teaming up to take on the Steiner Brothers. That's a really fun match. And in a really fun one that was selected, I think it was Ryan. I can't remember who selected this one, but right off there to the far left, you see a little picture of Tito Santana. That's because we're going to be watching Tito Santana versus The Undertaker from Barcelona, Spain in 1991. This is right before Undertaker won the title from Hulk Hogan, and Tito actually beats him clean. So that is a pretty fun lineup for tomorrow evening. 8 big matches, about 3 hours worth of matches, and I'm really liking that lineup. It's going to be fun. So make sure you are here tomorrow night for the big watch along. That is what is on tap. So that pretty much does it for the pleasantries. I've been kind of itching to talk about what we saw last night because SmackDown was in Germany, which means if you live here in the States and you have a VPN, you were able to watch the show, I think, at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever it was. I think for me here in California, I think the show was on around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I think. I don't remember, but I was basically eyeballing the show on social media, trying to get an idea of what was happening and specifically what was going on in the main event championship match. And so by the time I got home last night and was able to watch the match, it had already, been several hours old, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to come up and talk about it until today. So now we are here to finally talk about last night's SmackDown. Now, we're going to go kind of in reverse order here. I want to talk about the main event first of SmackDown last night, and then we will backtrack and talk about the rest of the show, because last night's SmackDown main event, of course, has major implications on what we might see at the Royal Rumble and at SummerSlam. And also, Monday's Raw, we saw the same thing. I think that the CM Punk and Braun Breaker match was a very good match. I liked the match itself, even though there was a couple wonky things in there. Braun Breaker landing on his head and almost killing himself, and a couple of other issues here or there. But overall, I liked the match, and I liked the fact that Punk kind of basically beat him clean, because that also really changes or possibly affects what fans were expecting to see based on some of the rumors we've heard about Braun Breaker and what WWE wants to do with him. Now you add this Drew McIntyre stuff. You got a lot of other variables as well, including Oba Femi vacating the NXT title, and there's lots to kind of think about. But first, let's talk about the main event of last night's SmackDown. It was Cody Rhodes defending the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre in a 3 stages of hell match. This was a stipulation that was picked by Drew McIntyre. Stage 1 was going to be just a straight-up wrestling match. Stage 2, Falls Count Anywhere. And Stage 3 was a cage match. Now, prior to this match, there was a lot of speculation about what could happen. Assuming Cody Rhodes is going to win, what might happen or how will he win. And a lot of fans were speculating that we could see Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu could come out and cost Drew McIntyre. I wasn't really sure about that. I don't really think Cody, as being the mega babyface champion that he is, needs help necessarily to beat Drew. The only reason Cody would need Jacob out there helping him is if Drew had a bunch of guys out there helping him. But one-on-one, I don't think Cody necessarily needs help to beat McIntyre unless McIntyre was, using some extreme form of cheating or something like that. So I didn't really think that was the way it was going to go. I didn't think that Jacob would cost Drew. Meaning like Drew would have had Cody beat if it weren't for Jacob type of thing. I didn't see it going that way. But Jacob Fatu being a part of it, I definitely could see being a possibility. And it was reported earlier on in the day yesterday that Jacob Fatu was spotted in Germany, so he was there. So, of course, we have the Stage 1 pro wrestling match. Nothing too special here. First of all, I might be complaining about WWE's booking of this match a little bit in terms of just their typical run-of-the-mill shit they always do, but that's not taking away from the effort that Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre put in. I thought they both worked their asses off in this match, and props to both of them, and I thought the match was really good based on how hard they worked. But, for example, that Stage 1, that first fall there, it's just more of the same. Drew McIntyre pulls off the turnbuckle pad. I swear, it's getting to the point where you feel like AI is writing some of these match finishes because it's all the same. A lot of them is just the same shit. It's not very creative. But anyway, McIntyre goes to pull off the turnbuckle pad to expose the steel. That then distracts the ref. He grabs the turnbuckle pad to go over there and fix it, of course. That allows Drew McIntyre to kick Cody Rhodes right in his penis and then hit him with a claymore and pin him to win the first fall. So my prediction or my thought of what might happen was starting to look like it was going to come to fruition. Drew was going to win the first fall, lose the next two, and then he's going to be kicking himself for picking a match like 3 Stages of Hell, when if he just would have picked a normal match, that's all he had to do, and he'd be champion right now. So I thought my idea might actually happen going into Stage 2. So Stage 2, of course, is a Falls Count Anywhere match. They brawled all into the back area through the crowd. Typical Falls Count Anywhere match type of stuff with the brawling. Ends up ending with a Cody Rhodes victory across Rhodes onto the announce desk, which looked like it hurt Cody way more than it hurt Drew McIntyre, but that was enough to do Drew McIntyre in. He pinned him right there on the floor, and Cody wins Stage 2. Now, it's Stage 3. It's a cage match. And again, this was a fun cage match. I cannot say enough about that Cody cutter, that super avalanche Cody cutter, or whatever the fuck it was, off the cage onto McIntyre was just nuts. How neither one of those guys broke a leg or dislocated a shoulder on that move, I have no idea. So that was tremendous. And we get McIntyre. Of course, it's a cage match, and in WWE, most of the time anyway, there is the escape the cage rule, which some fans don't like. It's debatable. I don't have any problem with it, only because the escape the cage rule has been a thing ever since I was a child, like in the early 80s and stuff. So it's like always been a something WWE has done. And there have been plenty of cage matches with that rule that I've loved. One of the best ones, I think the best one, that I would point to would be Bret Hart and Owen Hart at SummerSlam 1994. Even though that was a very personal and intense rivalry, both brothers spent a lot of time trying to escape the cage, and it made the match really good. It made cage matches entertaining without needing blood. So sometimes the escape the cage rule is perfectly fine. Other times it's a little bit silly. It's debatable, but escaping the cage to win a match has always been a thing in WWE, so why are we debating this 5 decades later? I don't understand, but it still is a topic of debate. So it is an escape the cage rule. The cage door is open. Drew McIntyre starts making his way to the door when a hooded figure, WWE and their obsession with black hoodies. What is going on there? They love the hooded guy, don't they? Or the hooded woman in some cases. So you got a hooded figure standing there, blocking Drew's exit from the cage, takes his hood off to reveal it's Jacob Fatu, which we knew was a possibility because he was spotted backstage earlier on in the day. Crowd reacts to him. Drew McIntyre backs off. Jacob enters the cage and starts stomping Drew, but he's stomping him in the corner right by the door. And so he's beating the shit out of Drew. Cody kind of comes to, sees what's going on, goes over there and kind of grabs a hold of Jacob, and without any hesitation whatsoever, Jacob blasts Cody and then just starts attacking Cody, working him over in the corner, pummeling Cody. Both guys on the opposite side of the cage, Drew all by himself over by the door, and he's laying there and he's kind of just scooting. He's beaten up, but he's just kind of scooting his lifeless corpse towards the door, and he just falls backwards out the door, landing on the floor and winning the match and winning the WWE Championship. And I really did like that finish. I'm sick of the hoodies, tired of them. WWE, knock it the fuck off. Please change up the playbook. I'm begging you. But the finish was still good. This is one of the examples of when I like the escape the cage rule, because that's a perfect way for Drew to win. When you have an escape the cage rule, one positive about that is it does allow you to protect people if you don't want them to get pinned or don't want to beat them or anything like that. Escape the cage kind of shields them there. And plus you have Jacob Fatu in, completely taking Cody out on the other side of the ring. And all Drew had to do to win the world championship is to fall ass backwards out the back of the door. I kind of like that. Not going to lie. I like it. This is one instance where I don't have a problem at all with the escape the cage rule, because I think it worked perfectly here. And McIntyre, for all the times that he's been screwed, he shouldn't care at all about how he won the title. As long as he has it, he should not care how it happened or whatever, as long as he holds possession of the title. And as we saw, he was pretty damn happy about it, as he then went to sleep with it and put a picture up on social media of him sleeping with his championship. I recommend using a little lube. Otherwise, that Velcro is going to chafe something terrible. But Drew, congratulations to you. I'm really happy that he won the championship. I think he needed to. I mean, I was sitting there trying to fantasy book a way for him to lose and, still have something significant to do, or, with his character, if he just goes absolutely nuts like Michael Douglas and falling down, but he's kind of already done that already. He's already snapped. He's already had, these moments of just really aggressive and intense frustration. Like, how many more fucking times can this happen to me? And now he's won the title again. This is the first time him winning that belt in front of a crowd. He's now a 4-time world champion in WWE. He is the first person to hold both forms of WWE's current world championships. He's the first guy to hold their current world championship and the current WWE title. First one to do that. Now, he's been champion 4 times. His first 2 championships was won during COVID. The first one was won literally in front of 9 people, if you count the cameraman, the announcers, and the lighting dude, at WrestleMania 36 in the Performance Center, right when COVID hit, in front of nobody. That is still a WrestleMania that just really just has this feeling in the pit of my stomach. Like, I just hate it. I will never watch it. I don't care if the Firefly Funhouse was good. I don't care what Randy and Edge did. Don't care. Don't care. Never watching it. Don't like it. Fucking hate it. And that match with Brock and Drew was so awkward. Like, they're basically going through the same match that they would have performed in front of 70,000 people, but instead they are in front of 9. And McIntyre's got to get up there and celebrate and still go, still act the part, knowing that this is such a fucking disaster. And then what? Randy Orton beat him for the title during the Thunderdome era or something, right? And I think Drew won it back. So he was a 2-time champion there in 2020. And then, of course, at WrestleMania a couple years ago, he wins the title, the world title, by defeating, Seth Rollins, and then gets cashed in on right away by McIntyre. So he did technically have that world title win there at WrestleMania, but it was taken away from him. So now, finally, in Germany, he was at Clash of the Castle a couple years ago with a shot that fell through too. Now he's overseas again, big title match, this time on TV, and he wins. He wins the championship. Thank God. I am so happy that he is able to finally win a world championship in front of an audience and keep the championship. This is something that we've been waiting for. This is 6 years, since his big win at WrestleMania 36. And the fact that it's taken this long is crazy, but now he is WWE champion. So what, guys, does this mean? Is Drew McIntyre going to be WWE champion going into WrestleMania. I kind of hope that he will be, because I feel like if you're going to do a title change like this, he kind of needs to be, unless WWE is going to give him a cup of coffee with the championship and either Cody Rhodes wins the belt back between now and WrestleMania, because there ain't no way he ain't getting a rematch. Cody Rhodes is going to get a rematch against Drew McIntyre. Even without the Rumble or the Chamber possibility for Cody, he's going to get a rematch. He's probably going to face Drew for the title at Elimination Chamber, perhaps. We don't even know, but I feel like that rematch is going to have to happen, or it's going to happen on TV, or it's going to happen on the Saturday Night's Main Event or something. But I feel like that's going to happen. So, assuming Cody doesn't just win the title right back between now and WrestleMania, Drew will be champion going into WrestleMania. But there's another big but there, and that is how WWE is going to determine the challenger for the championship at the Royal Rumble. I mentioned that a little bit earlier on. Last night on SmackDown, WWE announced 4 qualifying matches, I believe all for next week, right? There's going to be 4 qualifying matches. The winners of these matches all advance to Saturday night's main event right before the Royal Rumble to compete in a fatal 4-way. The winner of that match gets the title shot at Royal Rumble. So here are the matches that we're going to see next week. It's going to be... Oh, who did I say cashed in? I thought Priest did cash in. I thought I did say Priest cashed in. Yeah, McIntyre beat Seth and then got cashed in on by Priest when Punk. Yeah, I thought I said that. I must have said something differently. Sorry. Anyway, the qualifying matches for next week are Solo Sikoa versus Damian Priest, Trick Williams versus Matt Cardona. That's kind of an interesting one. Randy Orton versus The Miz, and Sami Zayn versus Ilya Dragunov. So that right there is a big red flag to me. Well, not red flag, but a big indicator there of what we're likely, I think, going to see at the Royal Rumble. I think it's going to be Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. I think that's going to be the direction, because we've been wondering about Sami Zayn for a while. Royal Rumble, of course, is in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of us throughout 2025 were looking ahead to that and saying, Royal Rumble, that's got to be Sami's match to win. Winning the Royal Rumble there in Saudi Arabia, that moment for him, right? But let's say, as great as that moment sounds, that WWE internally doesn't have plans for Sami Zayn to win the championship at WrestleMania this year. They don't have any plans. He's not in their current plans to be a world champion at WrestleMania. He's just not. So what do you do instead? Or I should rephrase that, because I shouldn't say that Sami is not in their plans to win the world title for WrestleMania. Maybe he's maybe not in the plans, what I said, to win the title, not be champion at WrestleMania, but maybe he's not in the cards to win the title at WrestleMania. So they don't want him in the Rumble. Now, that's smart. If it's going to be Drew and Sami, that's a smart match, because it keeps Sami Zayn out of the Rumble. And I feel that if Sami Zayn is going to be in the Rumble in Saudi Arabia, he's got to win it. If he's going to be in it, he's got to win it. Otherwise, it's going to be a big letdown. Fans are going to be wanting him to win. Everybody in that arena is going to be cheering for Sami Zayn the hardest. And if he doesn't win, now I don't know if the Saudi Arabia crowd is going to turn on WWE the way American crowds would when Daniel Bryan doesn't win, or whenever we've had a disappointing Royal Rumble in the past. But I think you really do run the risk of setting fans up for a disappointment putting Sami in the Rumble. You know, Sami even cutting a promo recently about how he's going to make 2026 his year to become champion, and then he goes in the Rumble in Saudi Arabia, a place where you think he should definitely win it, and then he loses, and then you're like, oh, what the fuck? So I think having Sami challenge for the championship would be better. So now I expect Sami Zayn to beat Dragunov and to win the 4-way at Saturday night's main event and get the title shot at Royal Rumble. So now Sami has got a title shot in Saudi Arabia against McIntyre. So that makes me wonder if they put the title on Drew for one of two reasons. To either, number one, make him a transitional champion, meaning Sami Zayn beating Drew in Saudi Arabia would be better than Sami Zayn beating Cody, because now it's babyface versus heel instead of babyface versus babyface. Maybe you've had a little bit more of a division in the audience with Saudi Arabia if it's Sami versus Cody, where if it's Sami versus Drew, I think 100% of the audience in Saudi Arabia is going to be backing Sami Zayn. So if Sami Zayn is going to get the title shot at the Royal Rumble, McIntyre makes a much better opponent for Sami in that situation. So it might be that they just want a heel to face Sami, and then Drew survives Sami somehow, and then prior to WrestleMania, Drew drops the belt back to Cody. Maybe they do that. Or Drew is literally a transitional champion. They want to belt up Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. They've decided this already. I'm just saying hypothetically. Let's say hypothetically WWE has said, we've got WrestleMania next year in Saudi Arabia. We could always do Sami Zayn's moment there. But we could also do it in just a couple of weeks at Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia as well, or instead. So we want to do that. We want to put the belt on Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. Well, we don't want him to beat Cody, though. So let's give the belt to McIntyre, and then McIntyre can be the one to pass it to Sami Zayn. Meaning McIntyre just has like a run that lasts like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or a month or whatever it's going to be by the time we get to the Royal Rumble. So I'm worried that McIntyre won the belt for one of those two reasons, either to be a transitional champion to pass it to Sami, or just to be a better opponent for Sami if they're going to give him the title shot at the Royal Rumble, and they're going to go back to Cody prior to WrestleMania, and we're still going to get that Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns 3-match, rubber match at WrestleMania. So let's talk about WrestleMania. Well, first of all, I guess we'll talk about WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble, kind of both. So if Sami is going to be challenging for the championship at the Royal Rumble, which we don't know that for sure, but I'm assuming that he's going to win that. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be Drew versus Sami at the Rumble. So that's great. Now WWE doesn't have to worry about how to book Sami in the Rumble if he's not going to win it. They don't have to worry about that anymore if he's facing Drew. So who wins the Rumble? We talked about the possibility of Braun Breaker on Monday night losing to CM Punk and then just winning the Rumble and getting the title shot anyway at WrestleMania. But how is that going to work now? Are you going to do Braun Breaker and CM Punk again? I don't know if we want to see that. The match was fine, but I don't know if we want to run that back really again unless the story is for, Braun Breaker to go absolutely ballistic. On Monday night, Braun Breaker, his demeanor, his body language, his attitude is going to be very telling, like how the Vision is going to respond to his loss. Breaker should show up to Raw wanting to kill everyone in sight. Infuriated, pissed off, mad. He is now 100% devoted and dedicated to learning from his mistakes, because you got to remember, it's been Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and now CM Punk, all within the last 10 or 11 months, have had clean victories over Braun Breaker. So there still is a youth factor with Braun. There still is an experience factor with Braun that is costing him these matches against people he should physically overmatch. But veterans are getting the better of him because Breaker is getting, too ahead of himself, or, getting in his own way, or, or whatever, making rookie or rookie-ish type of mistakes. If that's the story they're telling, then this is going to be Breaker's year to shut all of those critics up. And so they wanted him to lose here to start telling that story. I don't know. So Breaker winning the Rumble, I still think is a very, very big possibility. But if he did, what match would he have? Would he just challenge CM Punk again and you do that match again? Or would Breaker jump, leave the Vision, and go challenge a Drew McIntyre or a Sami Zayn over on SmackDown? How would that work if Breaker wins the Rumble? You could also have Roman Reigns win the Rumble. You could do Roman and Drew. Some fans might not want that, but I've always felt that was such a natural rivalry in WWE currently, and I'm surprised they haven't done it more. They wrestled at WrestleMania, 35, right? Roman and Drew worked there, And Roman has worked with Drew, Clash of the Castle, and they've had some programs, right? And I've always felt that McIntyre, from a physical standpoint, always looked better than Roman Reigns. I thought McIntyre looked like a bigger star than Roman. Now, don't get me wrong, Roman is awesome and jacked and a star and all of that, but prior to Roman becoming the tribal chief and he was just wearing that shield shit, and I'm like, why isn't McIntyre getting all of the opportunities over Roman? Because I think McIntyre looks better. I think McIntyre was a better promo. Wrestling-wise, they're probably pretty even there, but I thought McIntyre kind of got the nod in a lot of categories over Roman Reigns, and I've always felt that way for years. But it's been Roman who's been immortalized as, he's going to be a statue guy in WWE, where I'm not sure if McIntyre's going to be. And I always was surprised that it was that out of balance between those two. But McIntyre still has created a hell of a career for himself in WWE after his comeback. He's now won 4 world championships since coming back. And also, the match last night with Cody was really cool because those are the two guys that several years ago had shit gimmicks. He had Stardust and one member of the 3-man band doing nothing below mid-card. You're talking like opening of the card, curtain jerking bullshit these guys were doing. They both leave, they hit the indies, they build up their stock, and they both come back to become main eventers in the company. That's exactly the type of shit that you like to see. So I've always been a big fan of McIntyre, his look, his ability, his presence, his size, everything. I thought McIntyre embodies what WWE wants in a megastar even more than Roman Reigns. Just from a pure physical, cosmetic perspective, that's the way I've always felt about McIntyre. So McIntyre and Roman, I am not against that idea. If you did McIntyre and Roman, a lot of fans think that might be kind of boring. You might be right. Roman Reigns wins the Rumble. Oh, it's boring. Give it to a young guy. If you're real quiet, you can hear them saying it. No, give it to a young guy. It doesn't always have to be to a young guy, but sometimes it's nice when it is. And I've got some young guy ideas for the Royal Rumble, so just hang on a second. But if it's Roman winning the Rumble, you could essentially do an idea that I pitched a few weeks back with Braun Breaker. When does WWE want to belt him up? When do they want to launch Braun Breaker into superstardom? When do they want to do that? Do they want to do it at WrestleMania, or do they want to wait a little bit later in the year? If you do my idea and wait until SummerSlam, you can have Roman win the Rumble, go to WrestleMania to face Drew for the title, beat Drew, and then Roman can put over Breaker at SummerSlam. And I've referenced Brock Lesnar versus The Rock at SummerSlam 2002. You book a match very similar to that. So you could do that. But a lot of fans might find that to be a little bit of a boring road to take. Plus, we're not even sure if Drew is going to survive Sammy at the Rumble or not. So Drew might not even make it into WrestleMania as champ. But if he did, you could do the Roman Reigns thing. You could also possibly do what I think a lot of fans would like to see at the Royal Rumble. Obviously, Roman Reigns is a possibility. Braun Breaker is a possibility. But if WWE wanted to get really freaky, and they wanted to get nuts, and they really wanted to have some fun, if they want to collectively and creatively come backstage and say, look, we kind of had a creatively underwhelming 2025. Let's make 2026 the year that we remind people that we do wrestling better than anyone else. Because I've been critical of WWE for a long time about how lazy they are, and how it just they put so much effort into shit that doesn't matter, and they put no effort in shit that does. And that's annoying as hell. And creatively, that's always been a really, really big problem. So I don't trust WWE to get freaky. I don't trust them to get too nuts. I don't trust them to take chances, or, like I've talked about in the past, take advantage of unfortunate situations. When who the fuck was it? Who had to relinquish the title? Why can't I think of it? But when they crowned Jey Uso, when they crowned CM Punk the champion, and they did the Battle Royal there, and then it was just Cody and Jey, and that's how they determined. It was Punk and Jey, and that's how they determined the new champion when Rollins had to forfeit the title. And I just thought that was really, really lazy. It was a super unfortunate situation, what happened to Rollins, but you got to be able to like take advantage of those situations, you know, and say, okay, this fucking sucks, but now let's take this and at least take this horribly negative situation and try to turn it into as much of a positive as possible. But they're just too lazy. They're too lazy to do any extra thinking. And that drives me crazy because they shouldn't be that lazy. They should jump on these opportunities and make the best of an inconvenient situation. And they never do that. So my ideas of WWE getting really fun here and really surprising us, don't hold your breath. This is WWE we're talking about, and they usually play it pretty safe. And it's usually something that's either a safe or it's safe and or a letdown type of thing. So this idea I have for the Royal Rumble might not be something that we see, although I would love it. And that would be to completely smash Oba Femi into superstardom. Of course, he successfully defended his championship at New Year's Evil and then vacated the championship. It's official. Oba Femi has straight up vacated the title ahead of his main roster call-up. Sounds like he's vacating it because they don't want to kill any of his momentum. I don't know why he dropped the title to Ricky Starks to begin with if he just won it back and now he's vacating it. I kind of wish that he would have just held on to the title this whole time and then vacated it. But one thing you could do is you could have Oba Femi come into the Royal Rumble and dominate and win it. Dominate and win the Royal Rumble. Oba Femi all the way. You send him into WrestleMania and you make him champion. And he challenges McIntyre because Oba Femi and McIntyre, if you remember, already had a little run in there on Saturday night's main event on John Cena's final night because it was Oba Femi versus Cody Rhodes. And Drew, fucked up the match, and then Oba, shoved him down on his ass. So it could be Drew McIntyre versus Oba Femi for the championship at WrestleMania, and if they did that, no complaints from Greg. Would love that. Would love that. I'm going to rule out 3 names winning the Royal Rumble for right now. Gunther, AJ Styles, and Brock Lesnar, because I think Gunther will be involved with one of those 2 guys at WrestleMania. So I don't think Gunther is really a candidate to win the Royal Rumble this year. I think he's going to be in an attraction match, either one-on-one versus Brock or in a retirement match with AJ Styles. And AJ and Gunther face this week on Raw, and for the first time ever, it ain't going to be the last. I think AJ and Gunther will wrestle again. I'm hoping that it is a retirement match at WrestleMania. But with them already facing each other here on Raw, there's a lot of time in between now and WrestleMania. So there's a lot of time to kind of build that issue between the 2. And I don't know if there's really another 4 months in these guys or not. So I'm not really sure if that is still a possibility. But Gunther versus Brock Lesnar very much could be. And I think we're going to get a Brock Lesnar and Gunther showdown in the Royal Rumble this year at some point. So that could very well be the match. I think Gunther will either be wrestling AJ Styles or he will be wrestling Brock Lesnar. So I'm going to rule him out for winning the Rumble for now. I kind of want to rule out Cody as well, because if Cody has lost the title here and he's not going to be involved in those qualifying matches to get the title shot at the Royal Rumble, that means he's going to have to be in the Rumble because there's nothing else for him to do. So I think Cody is going to be in the Rumble this year and he's going to lose. He's not going to win the Rumble. He's going to get eliminated. So what do we do with Cody Rhodes? Number 1, we've heard about the possibility that Roman and Cody Rhodes 3 could happen at WrestleMania. That match is not completely out the window with Cody losing the title. You can still do that without the title on the line. Now, a lot of fans will say, that match doesn't need the title. Yeah, this one does. Sorry, you're wrong. This one does. There are some times and some occasions when you can look at a match and say, that match doesn't need a title. Not this one. This one does. The first 2 had it. They've been WrestleMania Night 2 main events both time they faced. You can't just do the rubber match on the undercard. Austin and Rock did that. They main evented 2 WrestleManias, and their rubber match was on the undercard. So it's not out of the question. But I'm talking about what I would prefer as a fan. What I would prefer as a fan, that if you did Cody and Roman 3, as a fan, I think the title should be on the line for that. It's too big of a match to do in the middle of the show or to open the show. It's got to close a WrestleMania or close a pay-per-view, and I think it has to be for the title. Again, not every match needs the title. This one, I think, if they did a third match, would need the championship. Or I shouldn't say need the championship. I would say, as a fan, I would prefer it to have a championship. Maybe you guys feel differently. I don't. I think it needs the title. So right now, neither one of those guys are champions, so I don't know how you do Cody and Roman 3 at this point. We can still get there, but where we sit right now, January 10th, it's not looking likely. So Cody and Roman, if that is going to be the plan, I'm real curious how in the fuck they get there. Because that's going to be a really hard match to do with a title on the line now. The only way you can really do it is if there's no belt on the line. But I think WWE might want to have the belt on the line too. So you could do Cody and Roman. A match that I've been pitching for the last few weeks and the last couple of months that I would really like to see at WrestleMania, that would be an intriguing match to me as a fan to see, would be Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk. And my thought a week ago was that Punk could lose the title to Breakker and then win the Elimination Chamber in his hometown in Chicago and then challenge Cody for the title. Now, I think Cody should win the Chamber. I think that would be fun because Cody, you got to remember, he's just lost the title. He's going to be earned. He's going to be, he's going to be owed, I should say, a rematch. There's no way he's not going to get one based on how he lost to Drew. So if he gets one between now and WrestleMania and he falls short or Drew screws him, or this time Cody gets screwed the way McIntyre's been screwed so many times and Cody finds this unacceptable, he enters the Rumble and he gets thrown out or he doesn't win. Then he gets a match for the title against Drew McIntyre. Between now and WrestleMania, he falls short again. So now he's lost to Drew. He's been eliminated from the Royal Rumble. Maybe somebody throws him out or somebody cheats or somebody from the outside comes in or he gets kind of screwed out of the Royal Rumble, right? So now he's lost the title to Drew. He doesn't win the Rumble. Now he's going to get a rematch against McIntyre, maybe back on TV on SmackDown or something, and he falls short there as well. Now, Cody is getting desperate. It's kind of like Rhea Ripley from last year or whenever it was, her desperation trying to get into a championship match at WrestleMania. Now you're starting to see some of that desperation from Cody. He's not accepting that he's not going to be a major part of WrestleMania. So his last attempt and his last opportunity to get into WrestleMania in a major match is to enter the Elimination Chamber, which he does, and he wins. Because Cody hasn't won an Elimination Chamber match yet, has he? So it's another match that he can win, put on his resume, or another notch on his belt, and he wins the Chamber right there in Chicago. And then you got this face-off. Maybe Punk is up in the skybox there, and Cody's done, and he points right at CM Punk, because by this point, the Rumble winner will have already been determined, and that winner, I think, is going to face whoever is holding Drew McIntyre's belt. Because last year, Jay won and he challenged for the other belt. I think it needs to go back to the other way this year. So I think whoever wins the Rumble will challenge whoever is holding McIntyre's belt. That means it's going to only leave Punk's belt left to challenge for. So Cody wins the Chamber. It's Cody and Punk now for the title, and this would be a great opportunity to turn Cody Rhodes heel. Have him win the title at WrestleMania by turning heel. Some people are like, no, it's not time yet for Cody to turn heel. Well, he's going to at some point, so it could be now. But if they want to wait another year, they want to ride the Cody Rhodes babyface train a little longer and then do the heel turn next year, fine. Turn CM Punk heel. If you do Cody and Punk, one of them has to turn heel. Because I don't think it would be as fun if it was a babyface match built on respect. I'd like it to start that way and then devolve into something a little bit more intense and perhaps even leading to one of them turning heel. So Cody and Punk is still now a possibility as well for WrestleMania. And if that's the case, it would be Cody winning the Elimination Chamber, which means, CM Punk has got a couple of title matches probably to survive as well. He might be having a match at the Royal Rumble, probably, right? Punk is probably going to have a title match at the Rumble, I would assume. So it might be Punk and Drew both defending their titles at the Rumble. And then if both survived to go into WrestleMania, I think Punk will. At this point, I would have Punk survive and take the title into Mania. But I'm not so sure about Drew. Not so sure about Drew yet. I think Drew could either lose the title to Sami Zayn at the Rumble or back to Cody before we even get to WrestleMania. You also have to wonder how Jacob Fatu is going to factor into all this, because he's got issues with not only Drew, but he might have an issue with Cody now. Cody's going to blame him. And a lot of fans were pointing out that Jacob Fatu, maybe he attacked both guys because he doesn't really know who attacked him and knocked him out. It was assumed by the audience and WWE that Drew was the one who attacked him. So Jacob, took out Drew, but, he took out Cody as well. But why would Cody be the one to attack Jacob Fatu? That makes no sense. So I don't see Cody being the attacker. Some people have thrown that out there. Oh, Cody could be the attacker. I don't really see that. But if Cody's going to turn heel, then maybe it all circles back and is all tied together somehow. But now I think with the options and the possibilities, you have the possibility of Drew McIntyre losing the title. Or I should say you have the possibility of Sami Zayn beating McIntyre for the title. You also have the possibility of Cody winning the title back before WrestleMania. You have the possibility of Braun Breaker winning the Rumble. Also the possibility of Oba Femi winning the Royal Rumble. Also Roman Reigns winning the Rumble. I think Cody could potentially now win the Elimination Chamber and challenge CM Punk at WrestleMania for the other belt. And that would be probably a night 2 main event. If it's Braun Breaker versus Sammy or Drew, like Breaker wins the Rumble, challenges Sammy or Drew for the title, and then Cody wins the Chamber and it's Cody and Punk for the title. Of those 2 matches, I think Cody and Punk should be the night 2 main event. Where does that leave Roman Reigns? What the fuck does he do? Sit on his ass? No. He's going to have to be factored into this as well. One of the 2 championship matches at WrestleMania could be a triple threat. I mean, it might be Cody, Punk, and Roman or something. I hope not. But, Cody and Punk, I'd rather see one-on-one. But you could see Roman Reigns getting involved here somehow still, because I don't know what kind of an attraction match he would do at WrestleMania if he's not wrestling for the title. What would Roman do? You could book Roman and Gunther, you could do that maybe, but, what would Roman and Brock again, Roman, Gunther, and Brock triple threat, there are things you could do, but none of them sound like things WWE would do, So all those scenarios I just threw out, if it's Breaker versus Drew or Sammy and it's Cody versus Punk, where is Roman? Where do you leave Roman? That's why I think Roman might win the Rumble. I think it's very, very possible. So lots of different potential roads we could take to get to WrestleMania. And that's kind of what's exciting about this. I think Drew winning the title really turns everything on its ear and really changes a lot of things up. It just depends on if this is something that WWE plans on being more permanent, or if Drew is just having a short run and or being a transitional champion. We're not sure about that yet. But either way, WWE booking of the main event last night aside, I'm really happy with Drew McIntyre winning the championship. He deserved this. Him and Cody worked their asses off, and I'm glad that Drew finally won the championship. So, yeah, got a brand new WWE champion in Drew McIntyre. So that's a lot to kind of consider there. Let me know what you think in the chat, how you think WrestleMania could shake out, what these matches could be, who's going to face who. And what would your ideal WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2 main event be? And remember, when you're picking these things, you got to... The matches can sound great as they are, but you have to think about some of the other names that would be really hard to keep out of the main event scene. So you can't have a couple of main event Night 1 and Night 2 matches that don't involve Cody, that don't involve Roman, They're going to have to be in there somewhere. I think Cody and Roman are going to have to be involved in those main event matches unless they face each other in the tiebreaker with no title on the line in the undercard. WrestleMania 19. We did that. 2 icons, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, after having 2 previous World Championship main events at WrestleMania 15 and WrestleMania 17. They're now back one-on-one, WrestleMania 18, retirement match, last time ever for the both of them, and it was, semi-main? Something like that? I don't know where that match landed on the card, but it was a couple of matches before the main event. So you could still do that with Cody and Roman. It would just feel weird to have those 2 guys face in a mid-card match. So that's why I'm not sure. That's why I'm not sure. And it depends, too, if, my Cody turning heel idea, maybe it's not quite time for that. If you think Cody is never going to turn heel, you're crazy. They're not going to make that same mistake they made with John Cena with Cody Rhodes. He will turn heel. But if you argue that maybe 2026 is still too early, well, based on the reaction that Cody Rhodes gets, I can't really argue against that. I can see that. But I can also see why, fuck it, just do it. Just turn him heel. Who cares? So we'll have to wait and see. And next week, like I said, we got all those qualifying matches to set up the Saturday night's main event match. And I think that's going to be Sami Zayn's to win. Let's talk about the rest of SmackDown last night. The show opened with Trick Williams getting a little bit of mic time with Randy Orton, so that was fun. Trick and Randy exchange some words. Trick smacks the microphone out of Randy Orton's hand, and then he attacks Trick Williams. Trick retreats, and then Orton gets attacked from behind by The Miz, but then The Miz winds up getting RKO'd for his troubles, and Orton and The Miz actually are facing next week in one of those qualifying matches. Trick Williams was also in action right after that. He defeated Rey Fenix one-on-one, just got a little roll-up pin on Rey for the win there. That's the type of finish that makes me think they're going to run this one back, so we'll probably get that one again next week or the week after. Julia defended her United States Championship against Alexa Bliss. Lash Legend and Nia Jax were out there. Lash pushes Alexa Bliss. I think she was going up there for Twisted Bliss. Pushes her off the top rope and allowing Julia to hit her Northern Lights driver, or whatever it's called, for the win. And then after the match, Nia and Lash put the boots to poor little Miss Bliss. I'll tell you what, this match wasn't half bad. The MFTs scoring a tag team win over the Wyatt Six, and it was Tama Tonga pinning Uncle Howdy after Solo was on the outside of the ring fucking with the lantern, and Uncle Howdy getting pinned. So that actually wasn't good, or wasn't bad, I should say. And even though I don't have much interest, nobody does really, in the MFTs and Wyatts, I think WWE's trying to make this kind of like... What is a feud? I'm trying to think of something with the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day was having some great feuds that didn't really start off so well on Raw, but then, wound up being a lot of fun. And even though it was like a lot of the same type of matches involving the Judgment Day against the same baby faces, it was really fun. The rivalries that they were making and the matches that they were having during that time wound up being really fun when they didn't really start that way. So I think WWE just keeps hammering this MFT versus Wyatt Six feud at us, and all the guys are working their ass off, guys and gals working their ass off in this feud. It might start getting fans' attention a little bit more, even though it's been going on for a while. This was one of my favorite encounters that the two groups have had. So maybe this is the beginning of the fans maybe changing their minds. They're going out there and having some bangers every week. And then in a couple of weeks or in a few months, we're looking back at this rivalry as a really, really good one that maybe started out not too interesting, but grew into a good program based on how well everyone was working together. So we will see. It's my favorite match of these two factions that we've seen so far was last night between MFTs and the Wyatt Six. Johnny Gargano still sans Ciampa. Ciampa might be leaving the company apparently when his contract is up, so Gargano is all by himself. But he dressed up as Axiom to pretend to be Axiom and then attack Nathan Frazier backstage, so that was kind of funny. Jordan Grace, as we saw, she was on SmackDown last week talking to Nick Aldis. She was back this week to officially sign her SmackDown contract, so Jordan Grace has been called up. Officially, she is on the SmackDown brand, and she won her debut match, defeating I almost called her Jessica Alba. Melba Toast is what I call her. She beats Alba Fire in a great one-on-one match. Jordan is so awesome, and it's just so amazing to think about like who she was 7 years ago. Just trying, getting into the business, the body transformation, the work that she's put in, the dedication that she's put in, and how good she looks, not only cosmetically, but how good she is in the ring. She's a beast in the ring. And she put down Alba Fire pretty handily, and as she's leaving the ring, she's confronted right in front of the aisleway there, or the entranceway, by Jade Cargill. So Jade Cargill comes out, gets in her face. Jade just towers over her because Jordan's pretty short, but she's strong. Jade's pretty tall, also strong. This is a good alpha match to have between these two women, I think. But Cargill doesn't say anything. She just gets on the mic and says, I'm that bitch or whatever. I literally did not listen. And that could be a Royal Rumble match. Jade Cargill versus Jordynne Grace for the championship. I mean, they'd really be starting Jordynne off strong there, putting her in a title match right off the bat, nowhere to really go but down after that, especially if you're not going to win the championship. There might be, I might prefer a little bit more of a ladder for Jordynne Grace to climb, but they're making her seem like a big deal right off the bat, which I think is a good thing. And I'm really happy to see her on the main roster. Also last night, Carmelo Hayes successfully retained his United States Championship as well, defeating Shinsuke Nakamura in a pretty decent match. So overall, SmackDown wasn't that special outside of the 3 Stages of Hell match. As Tito is coughing under my desk here. You all right? Hack it up, buddy. Can you hear him? Hurry up. All right, he's still going. So outside of the championship match last night, it was just an okay SmackDown, I suppose. But of course, the big story was Drew McIntyre is your new WWE champion. And what is that going to mean for the future? All right, let's switch gears a little bit to just a few tidbits of wrestling news. It's not really a super news-heavy week this week, so I'll talk about what we have here, and then we'll talk a little bit about Dynamite and Raw, and then I will see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Got some super chats I have to answer. Oh, good. Some WrestleMania and Rumble plans from you guys. Good. I will hit those chats here in just a few. But let's talk next about some wrestling news. And I just talked about this a minute ago, but as we know, Oba Femi has vacated the NXT Championship. He had a successful defense against Leon Slater at New Year's Evil, and he vacated the championship after that, which means he is going to be moving to the main roster. I think that's tremendous. And I just talked about a lot of the Royal Rumble possibilities and pitching some winners, and one of them is Oba Femi. You know, he's a guy that I just don't think you need to fuck around with for 2 years like you are with Braun Breaker. I mean, if Braun Breaker is as sure of a thing as you're expecting him to be, then Oba Femi is even more of a sure thing because he is just tremendous, and he passed all of his tests with flying colors when he was on Saturday Night's Main Event up against Cody, even prior to that on SmackDown. Cutting a promo and just being there in the stage, in the moment, you can tell right off the bat that this guy is going to fit right in. You know, he's not timid. He's not intimidated by the stage or the spotlight. He's there. He looks like he belongs there, and he is just a beast. So one of my biggest hopes for the Royal Rumble. I can be happy with lots of different winners. I'm not married to one idea. So there's lots of things that I could find satisfactory, but one of the biggest ones that I think would just really kind of shake things up and make the fans excited for what the future holds is for you to give Oba Femi an absolutely dominant victory in the Royal Rumble. I'd have him toss everybody out. Gunther, Breaker, Brock, all of them. You know, have him just fucking dominate. I mean, imagine if your final 4 of the Royal Rumble is Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Gunther, and Oba Femi. Imagine that final 4. And Oba wins. Gunther and Brock can be tied up in one corner and eliminate each other, and that, boom, then you got their WrestleMania match. And then it comes down to Oba and Roman. And Roman gets tossed out. Because didn't Drew toss out Roman when Drew won the Rumble, right? Was Roman the last guy out? I feel like Roman's been tossed out last a couple of times in the Royal Rumble. Is it Drew and was it maybe Nakamura who eliminated Roman? I feel like there's at least 2 Rumbles where Roman was the last guy to be thrown out. Maybe even 3. There was that one where Triple H won the title. So he might have been the runner-up like at least 3 times. Make him a runner-up for a 4th. Have it come down to Roman and Oba. Oba wins and goes on to WrestleMania to beat whoever the fuck the champion is. But then if you do that, what do you do with Roman? All these ideas, you have to wonder, like, well, if you do this, then what do you do with him? There's so much of that. But Oba vacating the NXT title, I like it. I don't have an issue with it. It's kind of like Asuka, they just didn't want to, really kill her momentum. Again, Oba, already lost to Ricky Starks, so I don't think it would be that big of a deal if he dropped the title before he left, but they just want to keep him very, very strong going into the main roster, and that might be because they have something big like a Royal Rumble victory planned for him. So keep an eye out and don't rule it out. I mean, if WWE put the belt on McIntyre and that kind of surprised us, I think that anything is possible now. And hopefully that is one of the possibilities. Let's hope so. Speaking of big, jacked men, meaty, beefy, jacked, oily, muscular men, apparently, according to The Observer, WWE is very high on someone who doesn't even fucking work for them. Powerhouse Hobbs over in AEW, who I've been singing the praises of for a couple of years now. Apparently, WWE has been kind of keeping their eye on him, and they look at him as someone that they would like to try to bring in when his contract is up. Now, again, this is The Observer. This is probably more kind of Captain Obvious stuff if you are some sort of an official in WWE who does keep tabs on what the other companies are doing and does keep tabs on wrestlers or prospects out there that maybe could come to your company one day. I don't know how you don't look at this guy and say, holy shit. So I'm not surprised that WWE is high on Powerhouse Hobbs, because who isn't? Just look at him. Powerhouse Hobbs has one of my favorite looks in the business, and he's gone through a body transformation as well. Now, don't get me wrong, he was always jacked, but when he first appeared on the scene in AEW, he was not as ripped and jacked as he is. He was a big guy, obviously, but he looked almost like he looked a little dirtier or something. He just didn't look like that polished of a star. He just kind of looked like just a really big dude that lived next to you. But now the way he's shredded, and he's just such a fucking beast. He's exactly who WWE, the type of WWE guy that WWE loves. And I really, really do love his look. He is a scary, scary individual, even more so than an Oba Femi. Because like Oba Femi, Braun Breaker, some of these other, beasts and big men, in wrestling, they have really nice and, kind of pretty faces. Fucking Powerhouse Hobbs, he looks like, I've always loved his grill. And his he looked like you give him a brick, like one of them red bricks, he'd just eat it. Just unbelievably scary. Don't get your hands anywhere near his mouth. This guy will rip your head off. He'll fucking eat you. I love guys that look like this, who just look like they strike fear into you as soon as you see them come out. And Hobbs, like I said, his look is second to none. He's got one of the best looks in the business. He's absolutely shredded. He's huge. And I could totally see someone like him making the jump to WWE, because if I'm AEW, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm going to try to get on this guy and get him to re-sign or re-up his contract and promise him a push or something, because otherwise I think Powerhouse Hobbs absolutely will jump to WWE. I think they will try to make a star out of him, where in AEW, you always run the risk of getting lost in the shuffle. Luckily, he's with the Ops, so he's getting a fair amount of TV time, but that might not last forever. And Tony Khan has got to understand and be able to recognize when he might have a superstar on his hands. And if he does have one of those, he might have to change up some of his booking plans and say, I think this guy's ready now. He's impressive. Fans are behind him. People like him. He's got a good reputation. Everybody loves working with him. Everything is positive, 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 positive. So do something about it. Don't let them steal him, because you've got enough money to compete financially with WWE. That won't be the problem. The problem might be, I can be a bigger star over there. I can get more TV time over there. WWE is going to invest more personal time into me. I don't have to rely on just one person booking the matches. I now have a SmackDown team, a Raw team, an NXT team, lots of places I can go, lots of shit I can do, lots of personal attention I can get and receive backstage to mold me into the next superstar. And I can main event a WrestleMania one day, where right now I'm not even main eventing Wrestle Dreams. So he might have that thought. I like Powerhouse Hobbs a lot. I want him to go wherever he wants to go. This is, it's his contract, it's his career, it's his life. So when his contract comes up, if WWE makes him an offer and he goes, all the best to him. I hope it works out. But I also think Tony Khan needs to be able to recognize when When you've got other companies eyeballing your talent and saying, my God, we can make a star out of that dude. And you're not doing that. Why the fuck aren't you doing that? Give Hobbs the world title. Didn't he have a TNT title run that was super ass short? He should be way more dominant than he is. And I think Tony Khan has got an opportunity specifically with him, to make a mega star out of him, make him one of your top stars in your company. And you should not be wasting any time doing that. So if anything, maybe this news about WWE being interested in Hobbs is enough to light a fire under Tony Khan's ass and say, hey, Hobbs, how about this? How about I push you to the moon for the next year? And if you really like what we're doing, you re-up with me, and I'll make you a champion and we'll smash you over. Otherwise, Hobbs might dance his scary ass right on over to WWE, and I could totally see WWE doing great things with him. I mean, they do great things with everybody, for the most part, who has a tremendous look like that. And what's cool about people like Oba, people like Hobbs, who have these big, awesome looks, they're also good in the ring. They're good and believable in the ring, especially Oba Femi. So I could see WWE targeting and potentially trying to go after Hobbs in the future. I know I would. Another guy that we're expecting to come into WWE at any moment is Chris Jericho. A lot of people were expecting him to show up on Raw this past week, and perhaps even affect the WWE Championship match between Punk and Breaker, maybe even showing up under a hood or some shit like that. But we didn't see any Jericho on Monday night. But that doesn't mean he's not coming in. I'm of the belief that he's already signed to the company. I don't even know why there would be a debate. We talked last week about, Jonathan Coachman and people like that just being douchebags and getting so agitated and upset about the reporting of this. I'm like, Jericho's coming in. Jericho is coming into the WWE. That is happening. There's nothing you can say to convince me otherwise. He's coming into the WWE. He's coming back, probably going to do a retirement run. It's just a matter of when he shows up there. I wouldn't even be surprised if Jericho has already signed his WWE contract. Now, one thing that I have been saying is that I don't, and we could all be wrong about this, but a lot of us have been speculating that we're probably not going to see him debut or return at the Royal Rumble because that's all the way in Saudi Arabia, and Jericho would get spotted there unless they do a really good job of hiding him. And he goes over there and he doesn't do any sightseeing and he doesn't do any meet and greets with the royal family or what the fuck goes on over there. If he doesn't do any of that stuff and he just stays in a bus and hides under a hoodie for 48 hours to show up at the Royal Rumble, then great, we're all surprised, but I feel like he's going to get spotted. If he did that, it would get leaked. Hey, Jericho's in Saudi. Well, what's Jericho doing over there? Buying furniture? No, he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. So you'd give it away. So I'd much rather see Jericho show up randomly. And Jericho is interesting like that. That's the type of stuff he likes to do. He likes to throw the fans off. So I think when Jericho comes back, it's going to be somewhere where we're not expecting him. And that's why a lot of fans thought we could see him as early as Monday's Raw, and maybe why a lot of fans gave Raw a bad grade because they didn't see Jericho. I gave Raw a B, but Raw wasn't a terribly good show. Based on how they hyped it up, I don't think they really lived up to that hype. But I didn't find Raw to be disappointing because Jericho wasn't there. It's not that. It was other things. But some fans were disappointed about Raw because Jericho wasn't there. But I think that's part of what makes Jericho special in that way is he likes to kind of do things a little bit different, keep fans on their toes, and try to throw them off the trail. And I think one possibility for Jericho, the first time he shows back up in a pro wrestling environment outside of AEW, might be in TNA. They're about to launch their show on AMC. Right now, they've got pretty shit ticket sales for that, but AJ Styles is going to be there, and Chris Jericho showing up in TNA on their AMC debut, I could absolutely see that happen. So Chris Jericho showing up in TNA, I think is very, very likely that he'll be there or at least make an appearance there. In terms of what he's going to do in WWE when he shows up, he is 55 years old. So that's why I didn't think, him being part of the vision or anything like that really made sense. I think the only thing that makes sense for Jericho to do at this stage of his life and career, being 55 years old and 30 plus years behind him in the business, you got to come in and do a retirement angle. That's what you have to do. So a retirement angle would be great, Put him in the ring with fucking Gunther at WrestleMania and call it a day for Jericho. Or do that a little bit further down the line. But I think Jericho showing up in TNA, giving them a little bit of a rub. Everybody thinks they're going to be the number 2 promotion. No, they aren't. Not even close. It's going to take them a long time to get there. Even if they start out hot and they get some decent ratings on AMC, I think the Bischoffs of the world are going to furiously masturbate to the idea of, oh, they're number 2 now. No, they're not. Just look at the fucking dollar figures. Look at the size of these two companies. There's no comparison between AEW and TNA at all. Now, in the future, can TNA get there? Sure. Do I think they will? No. They've been around for 23 years, TNA. And the largest crowd they have ever drawn is 10% of the less than 10% of the largest crowd AEW has ever drawn. Because that one All In, you can debate the attendance there all you want. It definitely at least had 70,000 there. And of course, TNA has 7,000 plus as their top attendance ever. Come on. But Jericho showing up there would be great because he's never been in TNA. And Jericho 20 years ago teased going to TNA. I'll never forget it because before social media and all that stuff, wrestlers had their own websites. And back 20 years ago when Jericho left the WWE in 2005, the very next day after that Raw match where he was carried out of the building by Bischoff's security team or whatever after he lost to Cena, he put on his website, the banner on Jericho's website the next day was the Jericho pose, was a picture of him underneath a TNA wrestling banner. So he was teasing right off the bat that he was going to TNA, and he never made an appearance there. So if Jericho, he's won some Ring of Honor titles. So if Jericho is pitching WWE, hey, how about I win the TNA title? Because WWE's probably like, you can't win our titles. You're old as fuck. You are not winning our world title. We're not even going to let you get in within 100 yards of one of our world titles. But TNA's title? Sure, knock yourself out. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jericho shows up there and adds yet one more world championship to his legacy of world championship victories that he's had. He's going to be one of the only guys to hold titles from those specific promotions. World title from WWE, world title from TNA, world title from AEW, world title from Ring of Honor. That's pretty impressive. Technically, you could there's an asterisk there, but you could technically consider him a former WCW world champion as well, couldn't you? Based on the invasion? But WCW was defunct by that point, so I don't know if I really count that. But that's a lot of titles, and Jericho in TNA, I think, is a definite possibility. Definite possibility. We will see. But nothing new to report on that front. We're just kind of waiting for Jericho to come in. But one thing that I'm not unsure about is whether or not Jericho is coming into WWE. He is. He absolutely is. Let's talk about this unfortunate little story here. Kind of a weird one. But there's some controversy surrounding Devon Dudley and Jim Ross. So this dates back to October, where Maven, I guess, went on Devon Dudley's podcast back in October. Bubba Ray Dudley was there. And Bubba was the one that asked the question to Devon if he has ever experienced any racism while being in the business. And he kind of said yes. And he goes, I didn't want to say any names, but both Bubba and Maven both kind of insinuated that the person he's talking about is Jim Ross because he kind of did an accent and whatnot. So this was all back in October and mentioned that he experienced some racism from Jim Ross in WWE when he was there. So JR, of course, has been sick. He's been battling illnesses. He's been, he's getting old. JR's, not in a great way. And he hasn't been for a few years. And JR was back on his podcast with Conrad this past week where he responded to that finally. It took him a while to respond to it, but he did. And he strongly denies it and basically has the attitude of, what the fuck? I've never had any issues. I've never had any racial issues with anybody in pro wrestling. I've signed and worked with and worked alongside a lot of African-American wrestlers and people in the business, and I am not racist, and I don't even know what that's about. I don't even remember having a crossword with Devon. Don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So then Devon is back at it again. He's on his podcast again. He's got Maven back as a guest, and he responds to Jim Ross and basically tells a couple of stories about JR. Now, this could be, a lot of it is, hand-me-down information, hearsay or whatever, but Devon is insistent that JR did act racist around him a couple of times. And he told a story about him and Bubba being at WWF New York, like the big restaurant there in Times Square. They were there doing some promotional shit or whatever for some pay-per-view. And Jim Ross was there too. And I guess they were upstairs in some room and they decided to go downstairs. And they were down there and JR was there and JR was drunk. And apparently JR was saying something like, yeah, Dudleys, I really like you guys. Bubba, you're tremendous. I'm loving your work. And I don't know if he said this directly to Devon or if this is what Devon heard, but JR said something like, but that Devon, I'm not quite sure about him yet. I'm not really sure about what it is, but I'm not sure. The jury is still out on Devon. Well, whatever JR said here, according to Devon, was enough to make Devon want to punch him. And Bubba was the one saying, no, don't. You don't want to do that. We just got here or whatever. So Devon seems to think that when they first got there, JR was drunk and belligerent and maybe insinuated that there's something about Devon that he doesn't like without saying what that something is, and Devon just assuming that it's the color of his skin. Then there's another story, another time in Indianapolis, where JR came into catering, bunch of people there, wrestlers, Paul Heyman, staff, everybody, and he literally says hi to everybody in the room except for Devon Dudley. And again, this is something you just hear. It could be just an oversight, might not have been intentional on JR's part. Maybe it was, I don't know. But for whatever reason, JR did not say hello to Devon. And Paul Heyman called him out. What, did you not say hello to him because he's black? And then Jim Ross said, yeah, and then left. So that story sounds like Jim Ross did not intend on not shaking the hand of the one black guy in the room. And then when Paul Heyman called him out for it, he's like, oh, yeah, just joking. I'm not saying Devon's lying, but at the same time, it's hard to believe that Jim Ross would be that outwardly racist. You hear about racism in WWE before. We've heard it from Michael Hayes, and back in the day in WCW, Bill Watts was accused of it. And who was Bill Watts' protege? Good old JR. And the thing about, a man wearing a cowboy hat, a man from Oklahoma or Texas wearing a cowboy hat is much more likely to be a racist than some random dude in Portland, Oregon. That doesn't mean that JR is a racist, though. It's one of those things, I grew up in the South, too, and you guys probably know what I'm talking about. It's one of those things where I don't think JR is racist, but I think he said racist shit before, or maybe has had some racist thoughts, and has certainly been around a lot of racist people. You live in that part of the country, where every one of them counties votes red. There's just there's a divide with race and with culture in a lot of those states. And a lot of times just naturally, like white people in Texas can be racist, or at least have a higher probability of other people in the country of being a racist, And I was around that. I lived in the Southeast. I had a lot of white friends that would, drop N-words all the time and say racist shit and stuff like that, while at the same time having a black friend, So it's weird or whatever. So Jim Ross, I think, is a country guy who probably has had some racial thoughts, maybe even said some racial shit. But I don't know if those tendencies in Jim Ross would really be believable to come out in wrestling so outwardly, where he's almost like saying the quiet part out loud. I don't know what it is I don't like about you. I'm just not sure yet. That kind of shitty thing to say, because you can kind of put two and two together there. One thing I will say about Jim Ross is that, and I've talked about this before, is that this is one of those things I'm talking about. I don't know if Jim Ross is necessarily a racist, or maybe he's a racist and doesn't know it. But when it came, I'm trying to think of who. D'Lo Brown comes to mind as the big one, and I swear there was somebody else. But Jim Ross was, maybe Mark Henry. Jim Ross, I always remembered whenever he would talk about D'Lo Brown, he would always mention, and it was the same thing with Doug Furness. So he was a power lifter. Whenever D'Lo was in the ring, Jim Ross would make it a point to mention that D'Lo had a college degree, that D'Lo was a CPA. And he would say it in the tone of like, can you believe it? That this black guy got a college degree? Like, he was always really adamant and really intent on mentioning that. Great. D'Lo's a CPA. He went to school. A lot of wrestlers should do that. I think that's a really smart thing to do. But Jim Ross would always mention it with the tone in his voice that it was almost hard to believe or something. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about there? Mark Henry's another good example. I remember when Mark Henry came in, Jim Ross would talk to Mark like he's 5. Like when Mark first came in, maybe it was like SummerSlam 96 or something. He sat in on commentary. It was when he first came in, and might have been during that Jake Roberts and Lawler match or something like that. And there's a couple times that this happened. And he was out there on commentary, and he's just saying things, like Mark Henry's just, observing what's going on in the ring and commenting on it. And I think it was like Lawler said something shitty to Jake on the mic prior to the match, and Mark goes on the mic, he goes, man, that's not cool, man. That's not cool. And JR, like he's a child, that's right, Mark. You're right about that, Mark. That was really mean. Like talking to him like he's 5. It's just weird. I'm like, Mark is a grown-ass man with a full-ass fucking brain in his big-ass head. You can talk to him like a normal person. He's not a child. But Jim Ross treating Mark Henry as if he was a kindergartner. Talking about D'Lo becoming a CPA as if his brain couldn't wrap his head around that. Those are some of the things where I can kind of see, what? Maybe there's some racism that is embedded deep in JR's algorithm and he just doesn't know it. Obviously, he was around Bill Watts, who Bill Watts has the same argument. How can I be racist when I put the title on a black man? You can still be racist. That doesn't mean you're not racist. Just because you have a black friend doesn't mean you're not racist. So it's those type of arguments. But we've seen Jim Ross in the business for 40 years, and we haven't heard a ton of these stories. He hasn't been accused by multiple black wrestlers of being a racist, where maybe Bill Watts was, some other people were, and I'm not saying Devon is lying at all. I feel if Devon was given the impression that he was being, racially targeted in any way during his time in the company, it's, those are his experiences that he went through, not mine. So I'm not going to call him a liar when I wasn't fucking there and I didn't hear any of this shit. Just going by what he's saying. But Devon is also a guy where he went through all the other names. He was Triple H, Vince McMahon. Nobody else in the company I ever had any sort of racial issues with. So this is not a guy that's irrelevant, bitter, trying to stay in the spotlight with a podcast. No, he was an agent in WWE. Triple H offered him an agent job. He's been in the business. He's not somebody that comes off like he wants to maliciously ruin people's lives. So I don't believe that Devon is just telling lies for no reason. I feel like Devon fully believes these things happen as they happened in his head. So it's unfortunate. I'm hoping that Devon and JR can put this behind him. If Devon ever did, or if any wrestler experiences any form of racism in pro wrestling, I think that's fucking shitty, and the people who did it should be dealt with. But this is so many years ago now. I mean, the story that Devon was telling about WWF New York, that was 25 years ago, 26 years ago. Maybe 27 years ago. They came in 99. So probably 25 years ago minimum was when that incident took place. So it's really hard to be, sure about what is being correctly remembered and what's not. But it's kind of sad to see the two of them having this issue this far into their lives and careers. And Jim Ross did say that he would love to reconnect with Devon and talk about these things. So, maybe Conrad or maybe Maven. Maven would be way better than Conrad. Conrad is insufferable. But Maven is tremendous. Everybody loves Maven. If you need a good moderator here, to sit between these two guys, hey, I don't like hearing these stories about racism with you, JR. I really hope that's not true. Maybe we can straighten out Devon's thinking, or maybe we can get to the bottom of this. And if Devon's telling the truth and you prove yourself to be a racist, then we're going to deal with that too. Let me sit down between you. Let's moderate this conversation here. Maybe that's something they do. I don't know. But either way, it's just kind of all unfortunate, and I hope it gets resolved. And all the best to Devon and JR and everybody involved there. But it was kind of a story that did dominate a few headlines this week, so I wanted to at least make sure I brought it up. And the last piece of news I want to talk about is regarding last week's Monday Night Raw and some of the things we saw there. Now, the first thing we saw was one of the things we saw, I should say, was Stephanie Vacates' promo, where she was in the ring and she showed up in a walking boot, and we were fearful that she was going to come out there and relinquish the title, have to vacate the title due to injury. And when she was out there, she had tears in her eyes. She was emotional. And I'm like, oh, okay, she's going to forfeit the title. But then she cuts her promo mostly in Spanish and says that despite the injury, she's going to work through it and she's still going to be La Primera and your women's champion. But she's saying it while she's crying. So I'm like, okay, what the fuck? And then right after that, right after she says she's not forfeiting the title, she's attacked from behind by Raquel Rodriguez. And I said, okay, that's what they're doing. Raquel attacks her, beats her down, works over the leg. They go to commercial. They come back. Raquel kicks her ass in the backstage area as well. So what that told me, the way I interpreted that, was that Stephanie Vaquera is injured. She's going to have to relinquish the title, but they don't want to go with yet another. We just did this with Naomi and Seth. Another one of these situations where I'm injured. Well, in Naomi's case, she was pregnant. Her vagina was injured by Big Jim. But they don't want another one of these promos of saying, I'm injured, I must vacate the title, here you go, I'm leaving now. So instead, they keep her strong. Her injury is going to force her to vacate the title, but instead of having the injury do it, they're going to do an injury angle. So that explained to me why Stephanie was crying, because she really is going to vacate the title. They're just going about it in a different way. She said she's not going to vacate it, and then she gets attacked. Injury angle going to force her to vacate it. And she shared a photo yesterday on Instagram of her ankle, and it's bruised to shit. So she has rolled it, sprained it pretty well here. She was walking around without a crutch, so I don't believe she has a broken ankle. Without me being a doctor and knowing anything, my interpretation of this was that her ankle probably just needs to rest to get better. You know, probably no surgery. It's not broken, but she needs to rest, and she's going to be out for several weeks, out long enough to where they really have to take the title off of her. So she's not going to need surgery, probably, and she's not going to be out for months and months and months, but at the same time, they have to take the title off of her because she's going to be out too long to have that belt sitting on the shelf. So they did the injury angle with Raquel, and I think that on Monday that Stephanie will have to vacate the title due to the actions of Raquel. And then you can book a match, book a battle royal, however you want to do it, to crown your new champion. And I would give the belt to Raquel. And then book her and Liv Morgan at WrestleMania. And then when Stephanie is healthy, get Stephanie back in the picture. Or Stephanie is able to work through that injury, but based on her ankle being all black and blue like that, I don't know how she's going to be able to. So it looks like she's not going to be able to work through that, at least for the time being. Because a lot of people were saying on Monday, oh, they just did that to give heat for Raquel in their title match. And I'm like, I'm not sure. They're supposed to face each other, right? Raquel and Stephanie. But that match, I'm assuming, won't happen unless Stephanie tries to hobble out there and just get through the match on the injured ankle and allows Raquel to beat her. But when she shared that picture, I mean, some fans were thinking prior to her sharing that picture that what they saw on Raw was just an angle to get Raquel heat. You could tell that that wasn't just an angle. You could see the emotion in Stephanie's face, that she's injured for real. How did you guys not see that? You know, to me, it was obvious as all hell that she's going to vacate the title. And when Raquel came in and attacked her, I'm like, oh, okay. They're just changing it up. Instead of having to vacate yet another championship due to an injury or unforeseen circumstance, they're going to make a storyline out of it. Make it Raquel's fault. That gives her heat, gives you a reason to vacate the title without just having to do it because of another fucking injury or whatever. And that's the way I interpreted that. So we'll see if my interpretation is wrong or not, because some fans are thinking that Stephanie's just going to hang on to the title and her match with Raquel is going to happen. And I'm like, I don't know how it's going to happen. I feel like she's hurt. And they did the angle on Monday to explain why she's going to be vacating the championship. That's my thoughts on it. But in terms of the rest of Raw on Monday, of course, we saw CM Punk defeating Braun Breaker in that main event title match, which was tremendous. Also, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky won the tag team titles, beating the Kabukis, and Becky Lynch unfortunately won back the Intercontinental Championship in a really bad match, in a match where Maxine basically watched herself get pinned. Very strange there. I do have a review of Monday's Raw up on the channel for Monday if you want to watch that, but that's basically what we saw on the show. And then they had the big Stranger Things tie-in there with all the Stranger Things crap and the vines on the barricade, but no cast members were there. at all, and it was kind of weird. And also, one thing that we didn't see, we did a watch-along of Raw on Monday, and during one of the commercial breaks, they signed Javon Evans to his Raw contract. So Javon Evans is officially on Monday Night Raw, and he signed his contract during a commercial break, which a lot of fans thought was silly because that's something that should have been on TV, and I agree, it should have been. Javon Evans is great. I'm glad he's on the main roster now on Raw, and despite some of the things we heard this week, I absolutely do see this guy as a potential top star in the future, for sure. Let's quickly talk about this past Wednesday's Dynamite as well, because it was an okay show, but we had a couple of big debuts on the show as well. And the first one was in the form of Jake Doyle. So right when the show opened up, Jet Speed was attacked in their locker room by an unknown assailant. And that's because Ricochet and the Callis family put a bounty on Jet Speed. So Renee is back there, and Ricochet's saying, what? All I did was offer money to whoever beat him up. And Renee goes, that's what a bounty is, which was kind of funny. And then into frame walks in a debuting Jake Doyle. Jake Doyle from TNA, coming over to AEW. This is a big get for them. And apparently he was the one behind the attack of Jet Speed. Now, I'm happy to see Jake Doyle there, but there's something off about him. There's just something that's missing, and I can't really put my finger on what that something is. I'll keep thinking, and hopefully something will come to me, but I'm not quite sure. But it is great to see him there. I think that was kind of a fumble on TNA's part. The fact that he wasn't involved in any of that shit with the NXT crossover or anything like that. Dude is just jacked beast, very physically menacing looking guy, and happy to see him show up in AEW. And of course, joining the Callis family. That's what you do if you join AEW. You got to join the Callis family. And he's there now, and he was the one behind the attack on Jet Speed, knocking them out of their six-man later on against the Demand, and they would wind up being replaced by the Young Bucks. But prior to that, the first match on the card on Wednesday night was a one-on-one match, Continental title eliminator match between Jon Moxley and Shelton Benjamin. Now, Moxley last week on Dynamite, MVP and Shelton came out to the ramp to kind of scout him or look at him, and I didn't know if they were looking at him as a potential opponent or maybe a potential member of the Hurt Syndicate one day. And now Moxley and Shelton face one-on-one, and a lot of people were pointing out that when Shelton Benjamin was making his entrance, he was crying. There was tears coming down his face, and a lot of people were like, what is up with the emotion? And the only thing people could really think of was that Shelton Benjamin is from Minnesota, and the very fucked up and unfortunate thing that took place in Minnesota this week that everybody's been talking about, of course, and some people thought it could be that. Well, later on after Dynamite that night, Shelton tweeted out that he's fine. He just poured water, he claims anyway, that he just poured water over his head, and it drips, and it just kind of looked like tears. And that's all it was. So nothing to really worry about there. Shelton did not lose a family member. He didn't have to work the match, under a ton of distress or emotion or anything like that. He's perfectly fine. And he just said it was from the water that he poured on his head. But Moxley did get the win here. Counters. Shelton's got Moxley in a triangle choke, and Moxley counters and pins him for the win. And we even get a handshake after the match. So maybe Moxley is headed for a faction switch here. He's going to go over and join the Hurt Syndicate. Don't know where Lashley is right now. Hopefully he's not injured or banged up or anything. But Lashley's another one, like Jericho, who's kind of old. So maybe they need a new leader of the Hurt Syndicate. Maybe it's going to be Moxley. We will have to see. Like I said, Jet Speed was knocked out of that six-man, but they were replaced by the Young Bucks. They would team up with Jack Perry to take on and defeat the Demand. It was a BTE trigger and a Jack Perry running knee to Ricochet for the win. Immediately after the match, Jake Doyle shows up there and attacks along with, I think Mark Davis was out there and the Callis family. They run in, attack Jack Perry and the Bucks. Jet Speed hobbles their asses out there to try to take out more members of the Callis family. Lance Archer, I believe, is out there. He's one of them. And so Jet Speed is there trying to fight back to help out the Bucks and Perry. And that's when the lights go out. They come back up, and there's a masked man in the middle of the ring, and Excalibur right off the bat gives it away that it's Andrade, but I think we all knew that by the mask and the stance and the hair and all of that, and he takes off the mask to reveal that it's Andrade. So it's just another debut. This is Andrade's third debut in AEW because, of course, we saw him join that Callis family a couple of months ago, but he was actually in an AEW ring on AEW TV when he was technically still under contract to WWE. WWE cease and desisted them, and Andrade has had to sit out until he and his lawyers negotiated a proper release from the company. So that took a little bit of time. They worked it out, thank God. WWE didn't jerk him around for too long, and he was able to re-debut again in AEW. So this guy has gone from WWE to AEW, back to WWE, back to AEW, only to be told that he can't work in AEW because he's still with WWE, only to come out of his contract with WWE through a negotiation and a lawyer back to AEW. So it's his third debut in AEW. That is crazy, but really fun to see. And I'm happy that Andrade is now officially back in AEW and he's there to be a part of the Callis family, which I now believe has, at last count, 172 members of that faction, which is crazy. Might be 173. It's either 172 or 173, something like that, but there's a lot. Dynamite this week also had a ton of lighting issues, and the biggest one came during the Willow Nightingale TBS Championship celebration when she was in there with Statlander and Harley, and she's got a spread and she's got cake out there and all that, but they were having issues with the lights, and the whole thing was done mostly in the dark. Mercedes Moné comes out there in like a veil, like a white dress, but like a veil in this like morning costume that she's got on. And of course she's crying, her makeup is running. And of course she completely flips and crashes out and gets more cake thrown in her face. Didn't she just have cake in her face? Yeah. They did some with Mercedes and a cake recently, right? So she likes to fall in cakes. So she did that again, flopped all over the place, wound up getting power bombed by Willow Nightingale. So that was nice and fun. Willow celebrating as TBS champion. And it looks like Tekla might be on tap to be that first challenger. We will see. Pretty good match between Bandito and Sammy Guevara. Sammy making the best of his opportunity here on Dynamite. Haven't seen him in a while. Got a bloody nose for his troubles. Bandito hits his German finisher thing for the win. And then after that, MJF comes out to the ring, and next week is is it Capital Carnage? What is it called? Maximum Carnage. And it's going to be Bandito versus MJF next week. But MJF comes out to the ring, and he brings his translator. His translator used to be Serpentico, is who his translator was, because I had to look this guy up, because when he was out there as his translator, I couldn't believe the bump he took. So MJF talks shit, tells Bandito that nobody knows more about Lucha Libre than him, and he's going to talk to Tony Khan about, he's going to go put him over to the back, in the back to Tony Khan, and then maybe one day MJF and Bandito can wrestle each other in 5 to 10 years. And then Bandito says to him, "I speak English, you idiot," and the two start jaw-jacking, and then MJF hits a low blow onto Bandito and takes the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And then you got the translator out there. I forget, John something, but he was the one who played Serpentico. And I'm pretty sure remember when Samoa Joe always does it, but he does the nope spot, right, where he walks away from the dive, and there's that one guy that kind of went like that. That's him. That's the same dude. So I had to look that up because the bump he took here was so funny. I forget who even hits him. It's MJF, I think. MJF goes to hit Bandito or something, and he ducks, and the translator takes the punch, and just the way he flat back pumped on the mat was the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. And so I'm like, this guy must be a wrestler. And so I'm like, when I looked up who he was and I saw the Samoa Joe thing, I'm like, that makes sense because he's funny. That bump that he took was tremendous. So MJF takes the diamond ring, but then Bandito recovers the ring and poses with the championship, and it's MJF and Bandito next week. And I don't know obviously MJF had a little bit of let's say surgery done on his head there, because I can definitely tell that he's got something going on. Just do what I did, MJF, unless you hurt yourself. See this? Where is it? Right there? Smacked the fuck out of my head the other day, and I look like Gorbachev. So, unless you do that, it kind of sucks. But otherwise, MJF, just don't even worry about spending $20,000 on hair. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, Bandito and MJF next week. Tony Storm defeated Marina Shafir. Wheeler Yuta pulling out the ref in that match to get Marina DQ'd. And then after the match, Marina knocks Tony Storm out again. And then in the main event, it was a lights-out match, tag team match, Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. They defeated Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook in a really fun match, and they just beat the hell out of Hook. Hook wound up submitting after he got the shit kicked out of him. Hangman's got the chain. He wraps the chain around Hook's neck, throws him over the top rope, and just hangs him from the top rope, and Hook submits, and that was the end of that. And it was a pretty solid, I think, Dynamite, even though it wasn't that tremendous. There was enough on the show that I did enjoy. And next week, we got a pretty good lineup here. We've got MJF versus Bandito, Pac versus Darby Allin. That was also set up this past Wednesday on Dynamite. You got the Babes of Wrath and Chris Statlander taking on the Triangle of Madness next week. Dynamite Maximum Carnage. Tonight on Collision, I only have 3 matches written down, but there's probably more. Commander's going to be taking on El Clone. Mark Briscoe defending his TNT title against Hechicero. And we have the Babes of Wrath and Chris Statlander versus High-End Maya World and somebody named Vert Vixen. I have no idea who that is. All the best to those ladies tonight, and I'm sure there's probably another match or two on there for Collision. So that is what is on tap for AEW this evening. I owe you guys a lot of responses to Super Chats and whatnot, so let's do that right now. And thank you to everyone who has been here. We'll spend the next couple of minutes doing that, and then I got to get out of here and head to work. But we will be back tomorrow night for our big Vault Watch-Along. Don't forget, all of these matches on tap for tomorrow night, 8 of them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be doing that 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific tomorrow night. All right, let me cruise to the chat and try to hit the Super Chats that I have missed. Stone Cold 10X was the first one in with 5. Thank you for that. As a fan of Drew, I'm happy he won the title, even if he's a transitional champ. Yeah, that's the way I felt. Even if he wins the title for a short time, it's better than not winning the title at all. So if he is a transitional champ, of course, you're going to have some fans that are going to complain about that. But if he's a transitional champ to pass it to Sammy, you can kind of understand why he would be a better opponent for Sammy at the Rumble than Cody. I kind of get that. So it just remains to be seen if Drew is champ, or if he's transitional champ. We are not sure yet. But right now, he's having a good time sleeping with that championship, isn't he? Ryan, thank you for the 10, my friend. Sammy could pull a 2019 Becky Lynch Rumble spot. She faced Asuka for the title. Yes, she faced Asuka for the title in the opener, lost, and then later won the Rumble. Plus, Drew is the one person Sammy hasn't beaten. That's interesting. Yeah, because Becky did win. She lost to Asuka, and then she came out, and I forgot who got attacked or whatever, but she was able to take their place and come out there. You could do something like that. Really make the Royal Rumble about Sami Zayn. I'd be into it. I really would if they did something like that. That's another possibility that you can add to the pile of possibilities for the Rumble. I really do like it, Ryan. We've got J9 for Nene. Thank you for the $5. Happy Drew got his moment. I think the reign will end at Mania against Cody, Sammy, or loses it in the Chamber and Cody wins it back. Losing it in the Chamber. Now, we don't know for sure, but the Chamber matches, I think, are going to be used for title shots for WrestleMania. But you could put the title on the line in the Chamber. You could do that, unless he has a title match at the Chamber, which he very well could as well. Just depends. But I think a triple threat in one of the 2 nights of WrestleMania is also a possibility just because of how crowded the main event scene is for the championships. If you've got Punk, and you've got Cody, you got Roman, you got Drew, you got Sammy, you got Breaker, maybe even Gunther, guys like that. It's crowded. So you might need to chuck a triple threat in there somewhere to make it all work. Max, what I don't understand is why they're doing the rookie story with Braun but didn't do it with Brock and Odin. You don't have to do it with everybody. Maybe Brock just wasn't the right guy for that. Brock was just too... Brock was way more impressive physically to me than Braun Breaker is. I like Breaker. I hate his name, but I like him. I don't think that because you do a rookie story with one person means you need to do it with everybody. This is just his thing. Some rookies don't have those issues. Some rookies just come in ready to rock. How many rookie mistakes did LeBron make? Not too many before he was winning championships. So I think that with Brock, he was just a different cat. Brock was different, you know. There was no rookie mistakes with The Undertaker either, was there? We just watched him last week win the championship. 1 year into the company. Didn't lose at all, except against Tito, which he probably made a rookie mistake in that match in Barcelona, Spain. Not going to lie. But, you know, it doesn't apply to everything. But I do think, though, one thing that is weird about the Braun rookie story is that he's been around for 4 years now. He's been in the ring for a few years. He's not really much of a rookie anymore. So these mistakes are a little bit getting harder and harder to justify just because he's young. He's had enough time and years in the business now to where these things should be coming less and less often for him, you know? 10 more from Ryan. Thanks, dude. If they are still planning on doing Roman Cody 3 at Mania, Cody needs to be outed and needs to outed as the one who took out Jacob, because then Roman can say he's fighting for his family. Yes, I don't know if Cody attacking Jacob. What was the situation with that? I don't even remember. All I know is Jacob got attacked behind the scenes. Why? Why would Cody do that? Why would babyface Cody, baby kissing Cody, white meat babyface Cody do that randomly? Now, Cody turning heel, maybe throughout the course of a CM Punk feud or something, I think could be fun to watch him make that transition. But this would mean that he's been a heel the whole time and he's just pretending to be a face. And he really attacked Jacob and he's just blowing smoke up everybody's ass. I don't see that being a possibility. It could. I just don't see it being very likely. And, you know, you don't need a reason to do Roman and Cody 3. Roman doesn't need to fight for his family to face Cody. Roman should want to face Cody on his own. Me and you. You won one, I won one. I want to see who's better. Fuck my family. I don't give a shit about my family. I want to know who's going to win between me and you. So I don't think that's, you need that for motivation. I don't think it's necessary for that. So I am against that idea, Ryan, I'm not against Cody turning heel. I think I'm against Cody being Jacob's attacker. I don't like the sound of that for some reason. Don't know why. Scrolling down. J94 Nene's got 2 more for us. Drew Sammy, Punk Cody, Roman Braun, Y2J Dom at WrestleMania. Don't hate it. But again, you got Roman and Breaker now. That's going to not be a championship match. But that's okay. Drew and Sammy for the title. I don't know how you're going to do Drew and Sammy if you're going to do Drew and Sammy at the Rumble. I don't think you run that back. As a matter of fact, have we ever seen that? In history, have we ever seen the championship match at the Royal Rumble happen at WrestleMania? I don't think we have. So if Sammy and Drew, and again, one thing I'm doing here is I'm looking ahead. I'm doing a lot of assuming. I'm assuming that Sammy is going to get the title shot at Royal Rumble. So if for some reason he doesn't, then you put him in the Rumble, and now he's got the shot versus Drew. So that works. But I think it's going to be Sammy and Drew at the Rumble, and I don't think they're going to run that back at WrestleMania. But if somebody else wins the tournament and that person faces Drew, then Sammy is in the Rumble, and it's very likely he would win it at that point. That's what I said. If Sammy is in the Rumble in Saudi, he has to win it. So if that's the case, Sammy and Drew would be fine for WrestleMania. Absolutely. 5 more from Ryan. At the Rumble, Cody eliminates Roman. Then in either his rematch or the Chamber, Roman costs Cody the match. That's how they get to the Mania match. That could work. That could definitely work. You could do it that way. But again, WWE would have to be okay with that match not having the title. I kind of want it to have the title, but if you want to do the match, you've got an opportunity to do it here. So you might just have to bite the bullet and not do it for the title, or do it on the undercard or something like that, you know? Missing a couple more there. There we go. Ryan's got 2 more. Roman was the last one eliminated in 14, 17, 18, and 20. So he's been runner-up 4 times. Holy shit. 14. Oh, yeah, 14 against 2014 against who the fuck won the Rumble? Batista, right? 17 would have been, who got the title shot at WrestleMania 33? I don't even remember. I have no idea who won the title. Oh, no, that was Nakamura? That was Nakamura. WrestleMania, or I'm sorry, in 2018, He was eliminated. That would have been before WrestleMania 30. Well, he still got the title shot. I don't know. Yeah, that would have been WrestleMania 34, but he still got the title shot. Who eliminated? No, that must have been Nakamura. So who the fuck eliminated him in 17? I don't know. Anyway, 4 runner-ups for Roman. Michael Kumo, thanks for the 2. Hobbs versus Oba Femi must be booked quickly. Yeah, that would be a fucking good one. But my God, Oba Femi's got so many matches there just waiting for him already before you even get to Hobbs. I mean, my God, you got Braun Breaker, you got Gunther, you got Roman, you got Drew, you got big beef waiting for Oba Femi already. Five more from Ryan. If they do another Punk... Orton was 17, Nakamura was 18. That's right. 5 more from Ryan. If they do another pre-Rumble Punk Cody segment, Punk returning the line of "Now you're chasing me" is going to be great. Yeah. That's. I think there's a lot of intrigue in Punk and Cody. They're really, to me anyway. Maybe not to everybody else, but to me, Punk and Cody would be a lot of fun, and that's really what I'm hoping that we see. Hell yeah. All right. Well, I hate to have to cut this a little bit short. I mean, it's been 2 hours, but I've got about 5 minutes to leave my house. So I got to go ahead and get out of here now and go finish up my week of work before I get a few days off. But remember, we will be back here tomorrow night. Really looking forward to the watch along. It's going to be fun, really fun little selection of matches to watch spanning WWE, WCW, and ECW. Tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. It's going to be fun. I want to thank you guys for hanging out this afternoon with us. Lots of Rumble and Mania and Drew and Cody and Punk speculation. It's been fun trying to kind of organize that in our heads. It's way more fun to talk about that stuff than some of the shit we had to talk about last week with the Vince McMahon nonsense and all that stuff on the business end of things and the lawsuit in Delaware and all that crap. This is much more fun. Talking about wrestling, things that we're going to see happen, matches that we're going to see, pay-per-views upcoming, and what kind of year we're going to have. So WWE has changed the game up on us a little bit last night, putting the belt on Drew, making the possibilities for Rumble and Mania a lot more, or giving us a lot more variety of those possibilities for Rumble and Mania, I should say. So looking forward to see how it all shakes out. And I got to look at the times for the Rumble. We'll probably come up here early in the morning and do a watch along. I'll get up butt-ass crack of dawn. Maybe not that early, but we'll be up here probably watching the Rumble from Saudi Arabia when that airs, because I'm excited to see who wins that and how the table is going to be set for WrestleMania. All right, guys, I'm out of here. You guys have a great rest of your day. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button on your way out the door, I would very much appreciate that. And I'll be catching you guys tomorrow night for our Vault Watch Along. Going to be fun. Have a good night. Peace.